Welcome back to the Talking Schemes podcast. I'm your host, SchemeGuide, and joined today by Coach Fury from our Madden League. And he's one of the guys that's probably the most passionate in our league about running schemes. And when something isn't right, he is very, very particular about how things should play and how things should work and what things should work and when they shouldn't work. And he's missing the D-line stunts, and he has a list from Madden for the people at EA to go through to make this game acceptable. But that being said, he's really excited for 23. So I'm in that boat with him based on that beta. It's pretty awesome. Thank you for joining us, Fury.
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. I don't have some of the state titles that some of our previous guests have had. I'm looking forward to kind of discussing what I do have.
Well, how did you get into football or football video games?
Well, it's funny. I was trying to prepare for this interview, and I wanted to dive into this question because this is kind of what started everything for me. I remember being around 12 years old, getting a copy of Madden 2001. I'd never played football because my mother wouldn't let me at the time, and so I got that game and never had watched a single down of any football. And you jump into a play now game, and I'm scrolling through the teams, and I legitimately said, "Oh, I like the green and yellow." And so I pressed Green Bay. And from that point on, that's the only pro team I've ever really liked. Brett Favre is the GOAT, that's my opinion, and that's where I go from there. And so from that point, that's all I really thought about, man. I thought about the X's and O's. At one point in my middle school days, whatever version of Madden I had at the time, I wrote out every single play and every single diagram from that Packers playbook. And I studied it during, whenever we had a break. And then I started playing ball, and I started out in 7th grade. That was the first year I got to play, and they put me at guard. I was a big kid, but I was the fastest kid on our team playing guard. It was phenomenal. And then I remember my head coach asking me what number I wanted, and he proudly said, "Hey, I want number 80." And he said, "Here's 60 because you're an offensive lineman." And I said, "Well, next year I'll get 80." And so I worked my tail off, lost a bunch of weight, got faster, and the next year I wore number 80 as a wide receiver, and that stuck throughout the remainder of my high school career. I played receiver and some corner. I wasn't very good at the defensive side, and then I played a little D3 ball in Georgia. And so from there on, it was just learning the game. It was actually just watching as much. I watch as much football as I could get, man. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And like you said, I do have a list that could at least satisfy my cravings if EA had an opportunity to call me.
Why number 80?
Why number 80? So I don't know. I do not know. I look back and I said, why did I want 80? And I don't know. I don't have an answer. I ended up my high school career, I ended up wearing number 9. Because you got to go single digits, man. You got to go single digits as a receiver. And then when I got to college, they gave me 17. And that's actually my gamer tag is Fury 1417. 14 was my number in high school for basketball, and 17 was my college football number.
What position did you play in basketball?
Bench. I was a phenomenal defensive player in basketball. Like, I really was. And I couldn't shoot, dribble, and barely could pass. So I didn't play much. But when I did play, I was the 2 guard. I think we used to call them numbers. I don't know what they do in basketball now. I haven't watched NBA. I don't get into the whole NBA thing. I don't even know. We just called it a 2. So whatever that means nowadays, that's I played a guard.
That's better than me. I played ball boy, so
I got to watch
the coach during the practice, and that was what I did. So at least
I got
you were on
the games.
when you first started studying football strategies, was it specifically, you said you had the Packers plays all written down. So was it specifically like that Mike Sherman era West Coast
Yes,
Packers that
yes,
you were really
yes,
first getting into?
yes, sir. That's the only football I knew for until Mr. Gus Malzahn was hired at Auburn. All I knew was West Coast football. Um, 3-step, 5-step drop, get back, get the ball out. Quick timing routes, play action. When you want to throw deep, I mean, prior to Gus coming to Auburn, that's the only football I knew. I remember watching some West Virginia back when Rich Rod was there, and I was like, what is this guy doing? Dude, you can't be doing this. And then you see Pat White running for 250 a game. And so from there, it just kind of branched out. And I really do appreciate all offenses, but I do have a tender heart for the 3-step drop, get it out, and let's go to the next down.
One thing that I've really enjoyed with your time in our league has been the extreme variation in the number and types of offenses and defenses that you've ran. Can you give us a rundown of some of the more interesting or out there fringe kind of offenses and defenses you've ran in Madden over I don't know the last 10 years?
Okay, so oddly enough, the first online league that I ever joined way before I joined in here with you guys, and by the way, this is the best Madden league on either console, period. There's no question. But I joined a league and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. At the time, I didn't really know how to build a cohesive scheme. I didn't have an if-then approach. I just literally said, let's get a bunch of this kind of play, and I'm going to be this identity. And I remember joining saying, I'm going to run this playbook that says run and shoot. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had seen Hawaii play, but I didn't know anything about it. And I said, I'm going to run the run and shoot. And practiced it, ran it for, I think, two seasons in that league, and they kicked me out because I threw for 6,500 yards. And that wasn't sim at the time, but you can't guard 10 personnel with, 3 linebackers on the field. You're just not going to do it well. That's how it worked. And I didn't run the ball then. Back then, that's all I did was throw. I didn't even think that run meant run. I just shoot it down the field. So. But
quarterback that's running.
Yeah, I learned that later on. I learned that later on. I learned that later on in my Madden career. But I since then I kind of left the run and shoot alone. I do enjoy it. I do love watching. I love that you guys run it. I don't have the time in my life right now to keep practicing it, getting good at the reads. But I cannot finish this question without mentioning the fact that I did attempt the empty spread air raid. I'm that guy. I said, you know what? I want to do something completely different. I'm gonna line up with no one in the backfield but the QB. And Mr. Hurts was fun. It was fun. However,
unfortunately you had to play me week 2.
I played you week 2 in my offensive line.
I could about what the Patriots did in the game against Sam Darnold when he saw ghosts. So I lined up so many creepers.
That game single-handedly said, this is the dumbest idea you've ever had. But it was fun. It was different. And I have this weird obsession that I want to be the only one doing whatever I'm doing. I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's a weird complex that I have. It is what it is. At this point, I've accepted it. Another weird one, I did try the 3-4 Tampa 2 style defense. While that was weird, that actually was pretty effective, having an odd front Tampa 2. The only problem was I wanted to do it out of base 3-4, and we play so many guys that do come out in 10 or empty, and it got to where I was still in nickel most of the time, so it really wasn't anything spectacular, but it was fun to be in the base 3-4 and trying to live in that Tampa 2 world, because your fourth rusher may come from either outside linebacker, maybe the middle backers. Yeah, that's some of the more strange or out there concepts that I've tried. I know that the run and shoot isn't out there, but that was the first in league that I'd ever tried.
For a lot of people, the run and shoot's pretty far out there. I ended up starting my own league because I was tired of joining people's leagues, and they say, where's your tight end? It's not sim to not have a tight end on the any play. Hey, you're up 35. Why do you still have 4 wide receivers on? Because that's all I have except for goal line. You want me running goal line up and down the field?
Exactly, and that's ultimately why I got removed from that league. That same thing. And I know you don't even believe in tight ends existence, so I'm a little bit different there.
I don't believe they exist. I think that their value is really overhyped. I think you almost any situation you'd be better having either a 6th lineman out there and just blocking the hell out of it, or having a 4th receiver. I'm sure there are benefits to having that moving chess piece, and it sounds good on paper. I just don't think you can attack in the pass game with a tight end as well as you can.
I do need to ask you this question. Because you've said this on every podcast about tight ends, and I need to just know for myself, would you rather have a fullback or a tight end?
Like juice check?
So I guess I need to define that better. So like if you were rostering a position and you had to have either a tight end or a fullback to fill your last spot, are you going to fullback to power that guy up the middle in your 10 personnel, or are you going to add a tight end to flex out?
If I could get Marcel Reese, that guy for the longest time in Madden was my dude, because he was like 260 pounds and 90 feet and could run, and like he could do it all. So yeah, if I could get Marcel Reese or like Mike Tolbert or like one of those.
Oh yeah, man, Tolbert
that used to be in Madden all the time. I would take a running fullback over a tight end. But if that wasn't the case, I would take a tight end probably over, Joe Blow blocking.
Right. What was that fullback's name that played for Cleveland, and he had that one season that just like exploded, man, and he got thrown into HB1 because everybody got hurt, and he had a phenomenal year and then disappeared. He was even on the cover of Madden. What was that guy's name?
Peyton Hillis.
Hillis, that's it. Played at Arkansas. That's right. Yep, that guy. Yeah. That guy would be your dude, man.
He was on the cover, and then like 2 years later, he's not even in the game.
Phenomenal.
Because they did a fan vote, and it was so great. It's like, why was that guy their only choice? Usually, I think that's why they're like, we're never doing this fan vote again, because now it's always a guy that's like high 90s, if not a 99. So that was a memorable year. That was an interesting year too, because it was really the last of that cycle. It was the continuation of what they built from 9 or 8 onward until through 12, and it seemed like a lot of what they gave us in 12 was like, okay, here's your wish list items. We're just going to check off as many of these little boxes as we can. There wasn't any one big item. It was, you get practice squad, you get you get this, you get changes to the salary and contracts, even though that ended up all getting new like a year later. Like,
right, and then we're finally getting those back as new features. It's great.
Yeah. When you started getting into schemes and whatnot, and studying the game on a higher level, who were some of the coaches that really made an impact on you? I've said before that really Mike Leach and June Jones for me were the two coaches that, they really inspired me, and everything I do is in some way a reflection of what I saw them do on Saturdays and Sundays. But for you, who are some of the guys that really inspired you?
So I think if I'm going to go to my roots a little bit, and I know it's not so much far out there, but I think David Shaw at Stanford would be probably head coach number 1 on my list. I don't understand how he doesn't have an NFL job. I think he's I think he's the most underrated head football coach in any level of the game. And like I said, I began my journey in the West Coast type, and I still am. I mean, I'm the West Coast guy. Like, I mean, I'm like Scott loves the wide zone, and it's the same drop back if you really want to look at it. And some of it's different, some of it's not the same. But at my core, I like to get that ball out and move on. But David Shaw was probably my favorite and most memorable coach. And then I would be naive to say that Gus Malzahn, though I have a love and hate relationship with him as an Auburn fan, he would have to be the next guy. This guy was a high school football coach for years, won several state titles, and got the opportunity to be an OC at Arkansas. Brought the Wildcat to prominence with Darren McFadden, and then he went out to Tulsa and threw the ball all over the place. And then he got hired in at Auburn and actually Arkansas State. And then wrong timeline. And then he was the OC at Auburn, got gifted one of the most talented humans to ever play the game in Cam Newton, and was able to make him a superstar. And really, Gus was a great coach, and he was a good coordinator for Auburn. But I mean, Cam was just, I mean, anybody could have coached Cam, and I think they would have been successful. And then, he goes out to Arkansas State, and then we hire him as head coach. And I remember, as a diehard Auburn fan, man, I bleed orange and blue. And I remember sitting there after they fired Chizik, and I'm like, it's got to be Gus. I mean, there's no, like, if you go after anyone else, I'm done with you, Auburn. That's exactly what I remember saying to my wife. And they, they hired him, and he come in, and we're sitting there and watching him take I think we were 5 and something, or we had a losing season. The next season we're in the national championship. And then, so we, as Auburn fans, we all thought, hey, this is the pinnacle, and we're going to stay up here. And then the hate relationship comes in when you see 5-star after 5-star, that we do lure away from these Bamas and Georgias and Texas and Florida and all these schools at the time that were doing really well. And Gus was able to land some great talent, some good backs, and some receivers, some defensive players, and just watch the regression of each of those positions over time. And then once every couple of years, we'd get into the national prominence, and you would see Gus, and I mean, he's rolling his hands, and we're going fast. And then a few years later, he's like, not going fast anymore. We're not aggressive anymore. And at one point I was like, we've got to get rid of this guy. And, Chris and I, we've had these arguments over and over. And I got to the point of where I just didn't even think he could coach anymore. And the more I've went back and watched film over the last, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, I'm just like, it more so was the fact that I don't think he surrounded himself with coaches that helped him improve. I think he was always a guy that hired coordinators around him that were yes men. And I'm not saying that's a bad strategy, but he never hired anyone that elevated his coaching. And I think that greatly diminished his success. And I think at UCF, I think he has an opportunity to go to the Big 12 and do what he was doing when he first started Auburn. I think he's gotten past because in Auburn, everybody knows the board of trustees make decisions that doesn't benefit the school.
And they had forced him to make several staffing changes when he was there, right?
Exactly.
Coordinators and position coaches a few times.
So the thing is we had Rhett Lashley for years. Rhett was his quarterback in high school, and phenomenal young man, phenomenal young coach. I think he just got the SMU head job either last year or the year before. I can't remember. And but he was Gus's guy. And the rumor mills, and we all know how those go, and I really have nothing to back this up other than it was words around, and that he and Gus kind of got into an argument, and they decided to part ways. And from that point on, we kind of went through Gus wants to hire his guys from his tree, and then he doesn't want to hire, and then finally we get told, you get these words that, hey, the board of trustees wants this guy. I don't think Gus even wanted to hire Kevin Steele as a defensive coordinator. However, that was a good relationship because Kevin Steele actually built and maintained the defensive intensity that we had in Tuberville. Some of the better defenses in SEC history played under Tuberville, and Kevin Steele was able to do that for us on the defensive side of the ball. And then they grew apart. And Gus was a very ego-led guy. He didn't want anybody in the building that threatened him, and that's, I think, the relationship among everyone and the board of trustees and all that. It deteriorated over time, and it just ended up into the situation where we were the laughing stock of college football, and then the Brian Harsin thing. And I remember when they hired Brian Harsin, I think, in fact, I was in the chat going, who is this guy? And you're like, oh, it's the Boise State guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then I spent nothing but days upon days watching Boise State film, all the way going back to the Oklahoma, what was that, not the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, or no, whatever, Fiesta Bowl, that's what it was. And when he was the OC, and I do like the guy. He has kind of that toughness mentality that I like, and he runs the quote unquote game style offense that I am at heart with, and so I wanted to be successful. And again, we were the laughing stock of college football this offseason because of all the off the field allegations. So life as an Auburn fan is extremely fun when the school across the state puts out national titles and we put out national headlines.
With the Gus scheme, this is a two-part question. When was the first time you talked about how you'd been, studying the Packers playbook and their West Coast stuff for years and playing with that in Madden? When was the first time you really approached trying to represent the Gus offense in Madden, and how did you go about it? And then with everything you've learned since, including, like you said, you just went back and restudied a bunch of film, how would you go about it now differently?
Okay, that's a great question. So the first answer is I joined back in my NCAA 14 online dynasty days when it was new. I found a great league. It was ran by a guy named Lambo 1919 on PlayStation 3. And I only remember that because obviously I like the Packers and his name, and he was a huge Packers fan. And one day I'm going to find out if him and Scott live next to each other. But anyway, I joined his league, and we all joined as an SEC school. And of course I was the only Auburn fan, so I had no competition there. And it was, like I said, it was the 2013 season, which was that same magic year that we had all the craziness and played Florida State and title, and the team was already pretty much there. I mean, we had Nick Marshall at QB, and I remember joining that league, and I said, you know what, I am just going to run the offense they have. And I basically, nowadays I don't do anything but custom playbooks. And I remember setting up and going through the playbook that they had generated for Gus, and I cut out the stuff I knew I wouldn't call. I'm not a huge ace, two tight end personnel shotgun guy, and they always want to put that in there, and I've got it in my playbook now, and it's in the Gus Malzahn playbook. If you download it, it's on all of them, but they never used it. I could probably count on both hands how many times he used that set, but I took all that junk out. I took all the fluff out, and I just ran power, counter, read option, and some jet sweeps. Jet sweeps in NCAA 14 could hit, and then some play actions. And I remember that season, I've never made it to a Super Bowl and won. I've never played in any national championship on an online league and won. I've made it a couple times in both. I've never won it. That year was my most successful year as far as online leagues go, in my opinion, because I took that same school that at the same time was going crazy in real life, and I won a Heisman with Nick Marshall running that offense. He ran for like I don't know, 2,000 yards and threw for 3. That helped me then because I was able to take what we were doing on Saturdays, and I'm like, hey, I'm just doing the same thing. Because Gus didn't change anything from the time he was OC to the time he come in. There was some minor tweaks, but looking back on like when I built my system for this current Madden season, and probably what I'll continue to run moving forward into 23, is remove even more fluff. And that's what I've done now, is I took out everything I'm not going to ever call. We run like 50 plays a game, and I would walk in with 225 plays and call maybe 30 of them. And so I've just, I literally have nothing in the playbook that I'm not going to call. People say, hey, you need this for a certain look or a certain alignment by the defense. And I'm like, no, if you call your bread and butter enough, they're going to get into a look you want that you can hit them with the constraint play that builds off of what you have. And so that's the way I look at it. And that's what I would do looking back and going back on some of the things that I've done is build off the fact that less to me is more. And so that's why I'm the guy in there going, hey, I only got 120 plays, but you got to stop them. Now, if in our current season, if my defense could stop a cold in the desert, I would actually probably be undefeated, but I can't make any stops because my defense is so bad. But offensively, that to me, looking back over the last several years, would be the biggest building block, was to say, if I'm not going to call it, there's no reason to have it.
I kind of came to a similar point with my offense with the Cardinals this season, where I think I said in the chat that I'm going to call this playbook the Atkins diet playbook, because it's no carbs. I cut all the carbs out. So I have some formations in the custom that literally are 1, 2, or maybe even 3 plays. In the past, I've always been like, I'll do 4 per formation. But I was finding that I was carrying like 4 or 5 tight sets, and I never want to call much in tight. But there's a play in this form, there's a play in this one, and a play in this one that I like. And I'm like, no one's paying attention if I'm in tight flex or in tight. Like, no one's aware of that. I'm in a tight look and I'm running plays. That's all they're noticing. No one's going to notice if I only run this play out of this specific alignment. No one's going to notice, and no one has really picked it up on that yet. But
and they're not. And see, the thing is Madden shouldn't even tell you the formation name. It should just say, hey, you lined up with 12 personnel. Let's go.
Well, and one thing I do as well with that team is I come out in one thing, but I'm going to probably be running in something completely different. I'm always looking at what they're presenting me and audibling to what I need to get into.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually learned that from you. I do the same thing. Exactly. That's what I do because of you. I've watched so much of your games, and I'm like, I like that idea. And I built on that.
I probably have said this before, but one of my favorite things to do is I remember watching Dana Holgerson at West Virginia. We both are going to tell our West Virginia stories in this this episode. And he would come out when he had Russell Shell and he had Wendell Smallwood. He would come out in this split back gun look, and then the quarterback would stomp his foot, and both backs would immediately sprint to the line and line up his receivers, and then he would hike the ball, and it was suddenly you're an empty. It's like, how do you defend split and then suddenly they're an empty? So I would do that in Madden. You can't do it exactly the same way, but I would always line up and have, like, I think it used to be called split flex, or one of the 11 personnel split back sets. I think now you have to do it with the formation subs, but you can still do the same effect. Madden. And then go into empty base or into one of the empty sets. And I love that kind of motion, and coming on one thing, making someone prepare for that, and then going to something else, or coming out and trips and then going to like tray open. And now that running back, comes from empty and comes into the backfield, and now you're hiking the ball and that guy's running with the ball. I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think being able to do a lot of those kind of motions and shifts can just add so much disguise and make your offense look like it's so much more complicated, when in reality you're still just running the
Yeah.
same bread and butter you were
Same
running
12
all game
plays.
anyway.
Man, yes. And the funny thing is I don't want to get too far off topic, but back to my spread empty air raid type thing I tried. There's a unused, nobody uses this, but it's the empty back wide set, and your halfback lines up as a number one, and you could get crazy stuff with that set, because you're going to have a corner on him, and then your inside receiver is going to be covered. If you're not in dime, you're going to get covered by a linebacker. So, and then you can bring that guy back out, and like you said, it makes everybody, they're like, oh my goodness, I've got to cover 5 out, and then next thing you know, you're slamming it down their throat because you've motioned back into a heavy set.
The one like that got me, and then I thought it was the greatest thing when I was doing it, was coming out in ace empty or empty ace patriot, and then going to like single back ace.
Yeah.
And I thought it was
absolutely.
great. And then I played someone recently,
but you started in empty,
and they did it to me about 12 times in that game, and I swear I was like so mad. And it wasn't that like they were doing anything wrong. I was mad because I was frustrated by it. I'm like, this is what all my opponents.
It is. It's extremely frustrating. Yes, absolutely.
Well, so going back to that though, so you would definitely have more of a low carb approach to it now. What would be the meat and potatoes of what that Gus offense would be for you? Are there certain specific sets that really accentuate that, or what he would use in specific plays?
So if you go back and you do some study on the 2010 Auburn football team with Cam, it was a little different than after. Like I said, he was still running the same concepts, with different looks. He was spread a little bit more. He would have that H back lined up in the backfield some, but it wasn't quite to the 2013 season. In my opinion, we didn't win the title, and they did in 2010. But that 2013 season, if anybody's got time to go back and watch every one of those games, it was remarkable. But I guess the core is what Madden calls open flex and open flex weak. It's a little different than what they based out of. There's more opportunities to go into NCAA 14 and look at all those H-back sets and all those things that they do have off of there. But Gus in 2013, which, like I said, is the epitome of his offense when he's got all the moving parts, and he would line up with the H-back, in the backfield between the guard and tackle, and then offset the back on the opposite side. That was the base set. If you watch the film, we're in that set 70% of the time in all the games. That's the most used set. However, there's not as much in Madden. To replicate that, you get 6 plays and only 4 of them are usable. There's like I said, the open flex, the strong with both on the same side. That is a huge set that they would use. And the motions that Gus uses is phenomenal. Every play has a motion, and that's not replicating well in Madden. But if you watch the film, when they're not in those sets, they're in just spread 2x2. They're very rarely in 3x1, even more rare in empty. So my entire offense is built on spread 2x2, offset back, and then I will use the open flex weak and the open flex strong. That's my bread and butter sets. You only need a handful of plays to be running in this offense. It's power, it's counter, it's inside zone, and then it's play action off of each one of those if it's available. And toward the tail end of Gus's career, he has morphed into this let's RPO every run. He didn't do that as much, and in the early years, he really, it was really either, hey, we're throwing the now screen or we're handing the ball off. And a lot of the Nick Marshall runs, the Cam Newton runs were called QB runs. It wasn't even reads. But I carry read option just for that, even though my quarterback's going to fumble it 100% of the time because he gets breathed on. But you can run the power spread, as I just call Gus is completely different, in my opinion, than any other version of the spread. We've had disagreements in the past about Ole Miss and that Art Briles scheme, and to me they're just completely total opposite, and it's its own thing. And you can run this offense with power, counter, inside zone, read option, and then just play action. You don't even have to have a drop back game. You're going to need it when you get into some third downs, but even then it's flood, it's four verts, and they used to run slot out, what Madden calls slot out, Ohio, whatever you want to call it. They used that play more than anything, and then screens, and then you're done. You don't need anything else.
It kind of reminds me in some ways of some of Noel Mazzoni's stuff, his older stuff. He's more air raid now, and he has a lot more drop back. But if you go back to his old stuff, it was, we're going to run inside zone up the gut on you. And then off of that inside zone, we're going to read with the quarterback. And then off of that read with the quarterback, we're going to have a screen outside. And then off of that screen outside, we're going to run our play action fake screen with a vertical that going down the field. And like, you're going to have to stop all of this. And, you know, if you stop one of these, we're just going to move on to the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's similar. It's similar. I mean, if you watch some of I've sent you the 2013 SEC championship between Auburn and Missouri, which to me is the greatest Auburn football game. Not so much defensively, because we gave up 900 million yards and 70 points or something. It was some bizarre. Our defense was terrible, but Ted Roof was the coordinator then, I believe, and it was bad. But offensively, that was my favorite football game I've ever watched. Gus Malzahn run power probably 25 times. And Trey Mason carried the ball 50 times. It doesn't get any better than that. We put up, I think, 65 points, won the game. And I want to say Nick Marshall threw 10 passes at the top side. I could be wrong on that, but if you can run the ball, you don't have to throw the ball. And that's where my identity has shifted over time, as I used to want to just sling the ball around, and now I just want to, it's safer. If I can get 4 yards a pop, you're not stopping.
Can you walk us through power and how you kind of run it and what you've learned from your study of Gus and his offense?
So, yeah, I got a two-part answer to this. 6 months ago, I would have just said, I'm just going to run it. And I don't really look at anything. I'm just going to run it. And I was the guy that I did not ever pay attention to defensive fronts. I knew them. I didn't really care about them. And I asked myself, why can't you run the ball in Madden? Used to, all I would worry about is how many safeties were high. What was the leverage of the corners? And I didn't care about anything else. I was just going to, if I wanted to run the ball, I used to run the ball versus too high, and it didn't matter what the front. You could have a bare front, and I'm going to try to run inside zone like an idiot. And I've learned after watching some more film, and Chris brought up a good point when he and I were having the discussion about Gus Malzahn and the Auburn offense, and you can even go to the Clemson offense, like we were talking about before the program, and power only gets ran to the right, and that is a pretty accurate state. It's not 100%, but it's fairly accurate. I'm not so much power only right and counter left. If you give me an open B gap, I'm going to run counter to that side every single time. Power. I shouldn't have said that, because now everybody's going to know that counter's coming now. But I guess if they haven't watched me, they would have figured that out now anyway. But
like Mike Leach says, he'll tell everyone what his plays are and how he runs them. It's at the end of the day, it's going to be about execution. It's about, can my guys execute it, and can my back run the play correctly, and can you execute and stop it. It's going to all come down to that. So
Right. And so far, the only one that's done it's Chris. Chris is the only one that stopped it.
I think everyone that plays Gus and plays his UCF team this coming season, they know what they're going to be getting. There's not really any
he's not going to
curveballs coming.
No, he's going to window dress it a lot, but you're going to get power and counter. And you're going to – and I didn't even mention Buck. I totally skipped that. Buck sweep is a huge part too, and I do try to run it. If it's an open gap, B gap, I'm going to try if I'm going to run counter weak, or I can try Buck strong. But on power, I literally just look and see if there's a one tech to the side I want to run counter to, and then I check out. So I'm going to run it away from the one. I don't really have any reason for that other than the fact that it's easier for that center to kind of get up to the next level. I know it's not zone blocking. It's more, it's man block. But in Madden, it appears that if you can run it away from the one, he gets a better block and you get that puller. And if you can cut, and I've also learned that I didn't read power correctly before. Power's the best football play there is. RPO, man, run power often. If you can get that guard that's pulling to just get into the way, you pick your spot, man. If you get that guard and he's outside of the tight end, or if you've got just the tackle there, you can cut that bad boy up, because the user, who 9 times out of 10 is going to be on a linebacker, when they scrape over, they see that pulling guard, they're going to try to beat you to that spot. You just cut it up right behind them. And that's what I've learned more so. And that's, I'm not the heavy adjustment guy. I'm going to run what I'm going to run. I might tag a few routes here and there, but on my base run game, power counter, inside zone, and I do throw Buck in there. I forgot, like I said, but on power, I'm going to run it away from the one, and I'll run it 30 times if you keep showing me the same look. And then when I do run into the buzzsaw known as Chris, and he shows up in bear every single play, I'm like, I don't know what to do at this point. I got to throw the ball. And then next thing you know, I'm down 21-7. And we won't talk about the rest of that because I don't want to fire Chris up. He did throw 3 pick sixes, and I did win the game. But he completely shut me down. He's the only one so far to completely shut me down offensively. And so if you keep giving me the same open gaps, I only so used to, like I said, I would walk up, get up to the line and say, how many safeties are high? If it's 2, I'm going to run the ball. If it's 1, I'm going to throw it. That's what I used to read. And now I walk up. I don't even look at the safeties anymore. You can have all 10 in the box. If you give me an open gap, I'm going to run the ball there. I'm going to run it. I'm going to attack that open gap. And then, I say that. I'm going to try it. And then when you do it to me again, I'm going to play action. I'm going to throw it over your head.
The one thing I've kind of had a similar journey with the run game and really diving into how the different runs play against different fronts, and it's really been eye-opening for me. But one thing I have found that can cause some issues for that is if someone is slanting their line all over, if they're crashing them down or crashing them out, slanting them opposite of how, from an over almost into an under post snap. Like, a lot of that stuff can mess up your reads. Do you have ways that or rules that you keep internally that help you to deal with some of that you can share?
So I don't want to give every single thing I do away, but there's 2, I guess every question you ask I have 2 answers to. Number 1, my stubborn butt is going to just keep doing what I'm doing. If you've got an open gap, I'm going to attack it. But if I notice that you're doing something fishy, I'm just going to go to the counter of that. So if I keep running power to the left because you keep showing me the open A gap, and I've noticed every single time you're slanting that way, I'm going to just run. I'm going to pop a counter. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give a read option a shot. Because if you're solely focused on stopping that inside run, I'm not gonna beat my head against the wall too many times. I will give it a few tries, but when you watch, here's the second answer to that. When you watch, like I said, the 2013 to around the 2016 era of Auburn football, their no huddle was different than most no huddle offenses, and different than the rules that we play with, which I'm good with in our league. If Gus Malzahn gets a first down, that next play you're getting the exact same play. He will run the same play 10 times in a row if you can't stop it. And so I adopted that philosophy. If you're going to slant away and you're going to do all that fancy stuff with your defensive line, you're going to try to confuse my line, which isn't terribly hard to do in Madden. But if you're going to do all that, I'm just going to run the opposite of what you're doing. I'm going to counter what you're countering. And then at the end of the day, I have no problem slinging the ball. I've had a few games where guys have loaded the box and they have started doing those fishy things. And they've started slanting away and creating under out of over, like you were talking about. And they've done those things, and I threw for 250 and 3 touchdowns. So I'm not afraid to throw. If you watch some of the Auburn film, Gus never was afraid to throw. He just didn't prefer it. And I'm gotten to the point where I don't prefer to throw the ball. I know you have the philosophy that there's 3 things that can happen on a pass and only one's bad. In my offense, there's two that are bad. If the ball hits the dirt, then it gets me off schedule. Back to reiterate what Coach Scott said is staying on schedule, man. If I can get 4 yards on power on first down, I'm going to come back and run either whatever look you're giving me from the front, or I'm going to play action. You don't want to beat you over the top. And that's the counter to the counter. I'm going to, if I get the look and you come out and you're slanting your D-line and you're pinching and you're bringing your linebackers up and I notice you're too high, I'm gonna hit that post in the middle on PA comebacks, because everyone knows Fury likes the comeback route. So they're going to take their user and try to take away the comeback, and I'm going to hit them over the top, and we're going to split the safeties, and we're going to walk in, and that's what we do.
That's awesome. What are some strengths and some weaknesses when you look at this power spread offense and how it stacks up against, the wide zone, the air raid, the run and shoot, maybe the Chip Kelly spread, some of these other, things that are out there in the ether?
So I guess I want to start this one with the weaknesses first, because I want to highlight that there are some weaknesses. However, back to what I just said, you can counter those counters. But if you are consistently not on schedule, if you're not getting the 3 to 4 to 5 yards a pop, and you're facing 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 12, it does make it extremely difficult, because you do carry a lower amount of drop back games. So you're going to get into a situation where you're kind of trying to say, hey, I've got to pass. I know I've got to pass, and now I'm at the disadvantage. You in that position, you're being dictated by the defense, and as everyone knows in offensive football, you never want to be at the mercy of what the defense calls. You want to put them on their heels. You want to put them on their toes. You want to get them out of position. You want to get them questioning, hey, did I call the right look here? Or what are they going to look? You want to keep confusion. You want to stay on schedule. So that is a weakness. If you call 1st and 10 run and you call 2nd and 9 run, and then you're 3rd and 8, it does become a weakness sometimes. It is basic. That could be a weakness that some people would see. It is a basic offense. As I've said multiple times, it's Gus Malzahn ran a high school offense and major D1 college football and won a national title with it. Times have changed. People have caught up to it. It's accelerated out. You've got the guys at Clemson that have won titles with it. It's a little different. They're in Clemson. They threw the ball more. They had Trevor Lawrence, and he could throw it more. We haven't had a Trevor Lawrence. Side note: best quarterback in my opinion to come out in a long time. And I've said that several times. He needs some help and a coach. And but that would be a weakness. It is basic. Like I said, it's power, it's counter, it's buck, it's inside zone, it's a read option if you want to carry it with your quarterback. There's been several times where Gus wouldn't even run a quarterback. We didn't run read option with Sean White as much as we did Nick Marshall. And then if you've got a play action game, play action doesn't mean anything in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12. So if you get behind the chains, and because you're carrying such a small, slim, low carb diet playbook, as you said, you can get into trouble in long distances because you are predictable, and guys are going to know, hey, this guy's going to run this route on 3rd and 18 because he doesn't have anything else. I think I have 1 4 verts in my entire playbook. So I'm not going to run. I mean, I don't run 4 verts anymore. I don't tag all these routes and do all these things that the air raid guys are out there doing and making my defense just look silly. Some of the biggest strengths, in my opinion, for this offense is because it's so basic. Okay, so I know I said that was a weakness, and it can be a weakness, but it's also the strength. So it's super basic. So that means that you're able to get into the lab, you're able to get into practice, you're able to put on that cape, and you're able to say, hey, look, I'm going to run these 12, these 10, these 7, these plays that are going to make up the 75% of my offense, and you can rep it. You can look at it on an under front, an over front, a bear front, an okie front, double eagle. You can look at all those things, and you're not spending so much time because you're not overwhelmed. You're not sitting there saying, I've got to look what this route concept does, and I've got to check this concept, and you don't carry all these other non-plays that you're never going to call, and so that is a benefit, and that is a strength to me. Another strength is if you can get 4 yards a pop, you never have to throw the football. If you never have to throw the football, you don't ever throw interceptions. If you don't throw interceptions, your defense doesn't get a short field. If you don't get a short field, you don't give up as many touchdowns. That's a huge plus, in my opinion. I had to learn that the hard way after throwing 30 interceptions in a season, saying, what am I doing wrong? And so now I just don't want to throw it. I want to run the ball. If I can get 4 yards a pop, if you can get 4 a pop, you don't throw the ball. The third strength would be after you've mastered the fact that I'm only going to call this play here, and here, and you're going to say, I'm going to be Atkins diet based, and I'm going to do all these things, then you can go really fast and you don't have to think about it anymore. And that, if you look at the success that the 2010 and the 2013 and the 2015 Auburn Tigers had, they went super fast because they were getting the 4 yards a pop. They were breaking the 25-yard runs, and they ran extremely fast. So once you are able to get all of the ducks in a row and you're able to say, this is what we're going to do, you can show me what you're going to show me. You can bring 12 in the box, and I'm still going to run on you, and I'm still going to get 4 yards a pop. I'm going to go as fast as humanly possible, and you're not going to be able to make any changes.
That's fantastic. What ratings, sizes, skill sets, etc., do you look for each position when you're trying to acquire your talent? I know that you're like me. You like taking over a cupcake team and building them up from the ground up. So, like, also the second part of this would be what positions are, the most crucial to nail.
Okay, this one's gonna shock people, right? This one's gonna be for the guys in our Madden League. I'm gonna blow some minds right here. For quarterback, I only care about throw power. Yeah, low accuracy can be bad. I had Malik Willis start at QB1, and he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But they didn't do him any justice. They gave him a mediocre arm in this roster we downloaded, so I couldn't even use his fact that he could throw it 90 yards. But for me, offensively, the most important position in this offense, and I've went against what I used to say about Madden and what I used to think about team building over the last several cycles, is, to me, the most important position is a good offensive line in this offense. I took over the Tennessee Titans. I got blessed with a freak of nature at running back, but you don't need that. It's nice. I've moved more toward the same kind of philosophy that Gus brought. His guy, his bell cow, he's going to give this guy 35 carries a game, and that guy's going to be a 230-pound back. I've morphed into a mini DL here. I'm running. I'm running a power back, man. And yeah, Henry's a freak and can run. I think he's 92 or 93 speed, so that's beautiful. But I've morphed into, hey, I need a big guy that can run the 210-pound safety over and not look back. So, but like I said, I've focused everything on offensive line, and you taught me that run block and pass block are kind of not even important. So the most important thing I need is high run block power. So across the board, my guards, since I am running power and I've got them moving, I do look for guys that can get someone that's slower than molasses. So I don't have a specific number, but if I'm in the practice mode and the guy, if my halfback is beating you to the spot 9 times out of 10, I'm probably moving on from that guy. And I had to do that. I had a younger guy that I was like, hey, I'm going to start this guy, but in practice mode, my back, the defensive lineman would beat the guy to the block, and I would get tackled every time. Then I put the old guy in who was a little faster, and it changed. So I look for a big tight end. I have always loved tight ends. Contrary to my beginnings in the run and shoot and in our conversations, and like we've said, you don't really value tight ends as highly as some people, but I want a big tight end one. I want a guy that is able to block a little. I don't have to have the mauler, but I do have to have the guy that when it's 3rd and 4 and I throw you a 5-yard out, you got to catch it, man. And I've moved on in this offense. I don't need the Tyreek Hills of the world. It's nice. It's a luxury. But if I can get a solid guy in the slot and then at X, I don't really have a preference on Z. Just because most of my passing game is play action, and I'm looking away from the back, and my back is typically on the right just based on field position. So I literally look in the window of the play. So like if my back is going play action to the left, my view is into the left. So I kind of, and I'm giving away too much there. So guys know I'm probably not going to throw the Z if I'm running play action to the left. But I look more so now for a high run blocking power type offensive line, a big time tight end, and whatever power back I can get my hands on.
So size and power are the keys to the game on that front. And then you still are primarily looking at arm power over anything else, or do you like having a QB that can be a running threat as well?
Well, it's funny you should ask, sir. I would love to have a quarterback that can run the football on some reads. However, every time I've ran my QB this season, I have fumbled due to either input lag on my slide, me not knowing how to slide apparently, or I hit the slide button and he starts the slide and gets hit anyway. So I've actually almost gotten to the point where I'm not running my quarterback until I know that I'm not going to fumble every single time. But as part of the offense, absolutely, you do want a guy that can get out there. He doesn't have to be a Lamar. He doesn't have to be a Mike Vick back there. You don't have to have that. And like I said, when you watch Gus Malzahn, he builds his offense around the skill set of that quarterback he has. If you look at 2010 and you got the freak of nature Cam Newton back there, they called QB power a lot. But you got a 6'6", 250-pound battering ram at QB who can throw it a mile. So when Nick Marshall showed up, it was more of the zone-based, let me get outside of this defensive end that's wanting to take away the inside run game. And with Cam, they were saying, hey, we're going to line up. We're using 10 blockers, and we're going to come right up the gut. And it worked. It worked fairly well. It got the man a Heisman, and it got a shiny trophy for Auburn. And so that worked out really well. So as far as this offense, whatever quarterback you have, that's what you need to build around. If you've got a guy that's not going to be able to get out there on the edge, don't worry about carrying the option because you don't need it. Like I said, we had Sean White, who was a 6'1"-ish on a good day, 200-pound kid out there runs a 5.140 and he's running the zone read twice a game instead of the 20 times that we would give it to Marshall. So you don't have to have a specific archetype there. If you've got a guy that can throw it 100 miles, then don't run him. If you've got a guy that runs like a deer, then run him. Just make sure you get down, because in Madden you're going to fumble. So yeah, I mean, it just based on what quarterback you have available. As far as team building, if I'm building a team, like you said, I take a cupcake team, which has been the detriment to my sanity. I'm going to look for a quarterback that has high arm strength over everything. If he comes in with 65 speed, I don't need him to run the option. I'm good with that. But if he comes in with a strong arm and runs like a deer, then we're going to destroy people.
Yeah, and that's what I had said on the last episode too, is to me it's so important to have that high throw power, not necessarily for the distance, but I want to be able to get the ball with high velocity into the tight windows.
Absolutely.
Before the defenders can get there.
And I think you're right there. That clarification is huge, because I think people say, when I say I'm quote unquote a throw power W, I don't mean I need him to throw it from the 20 to the end zone. I'm not needing that. I need the ball there. I need the ball there now. I do throw tight window throws. If the guy's open, I'm throwing him the ball. And in the NFL and in Madden, that doesn't have to be 5-10 yards of space. You have to be able, as an NFL quarterback, fit a throw in there. And if you don't have a 94, 95, even higher throw, that ball's going to lag. And you're right. It's all about the velocity of the throw. And that's a huge part that, I've tried the 87 throw power quarterbacks. I've tried the 85 throw power quarterbacks, and it just doesn't work in my passing game. I just cannot do it. I can't wait 7 seconds for a 10-yard out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you would like to plug, or would you like to direct people to check out anything before we sign out?
Yeah, absolutely. For people that are truly interested in running, like what I call it, the power spread. Some people lump it into the Smashmouth spread, which I think is a moniker that would fit more so with what Gus Malzahn runs than what people have given that moniker to. There's some great film for the Auburn Tigers on YouTube, and it's broken down by year, and you're able to get in, and I wish it was more all 22 type film. It's more broadcast film, so you can't see a lot of the route distributions. And I didn't really even get into the fact of the route concepts too deeply that Gus does. But on play action, when he runs play action, there is no outlet. He's looking to strike you. He's looking to put that dagger in your chest, and he's looking to end the game. In his own words, we're a two-back offense. We're going to run power football, and we're going to run play action. And so people that want to be safe with the football and eliminate turnovers, I think would benefit greatly from giving it a try. I've tried just about every scheme you can run. And for me, where I'm currently at in my football virtual journey, protecting the football means I win the game more times than not. And the shameless plug, and not to rip Chris, but you can go down 21-7, and if you get 3 pick sixes, you can win the game. So
well, thank you so much, Coach. And make sure, if you haven't already, everyone, make sure you click the subscribe button down below, hit the like, comment down below, share it with your friends. And we have Patreon down there. We have the Discord down there where you can talk with Fury and ask him follow-up questions if you have any, and all sorts of other stuff. So make sure you check out the links down in the description, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.